Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today, the top 10 interesting details about the Nazi Lebensborn program. Nazi SS leader Heinrich Himmler developed the Lebensborn, meaning wellspring of life program for the Third Reich. The program, which began in December of 1935 and continued until the end of the Second World War, persuaded women of so-called pure blood to mate with single as well as married SS officers and ultimately give birth to blonde, blue-eyed children. Himmler oversaw the Lebensborn program throughout its tenure and frequently visited Lebensborn homes. He was arrested as a war criminal when the Second World War ended and killed himself by swallowing a cyanide capsule on May 23, 1945, while he was imprisoned. Number 10. The goal of the program. Beginning in the early 1900s, Germany's birth rate was in decline. Due to tough economic times and a shortage of marriage-age men, particularly after Germany's defeat on November 11, 1918 in the First World War, the use of birth control and women seeking abortions became pretty common. By 1913, the birth rate per 1,000 was only 14.7. The Lebensborn program was a method for Nazis to reverse the birth rate decline and at the same time create a superior Aryan master race which would dominate Europe as part of Führer Adolf Hitler's Third Reich, or Thousand-Year Reich. Hitler's plan was to complete the last third of a trio that included the First Reich, the Holy Roman Empire, the Second Reich, the Hohenzollern dynasty. Both of these lasted 1,000 years each, and he wanted his Reich to last the same. As it turns out, the Third Reich only lasted 11 years. Number 9. Lebensborn home locations. Pregnant women who could prove their children's Aryan lineage were given special financial support and special treatment by the government. Alternatively, they could leave their children in Lebensborn homes, where the children would receive the best of care and, of course, a Nazi education. Initially, there were 10 Lebensborn homes, and all of these were located within Germany. Now, the first of these that opened was in a small village near Munich called Steinhering. As World War II raged on and the Nazis began to invade and conquer other places in Europe, it gave Himmler an opportunity to expand the program. Eventually, 9 Lebensborn homes were added in Norway, 2 in Austria, and 1 each in Belgium, Holland, France, Luxembourg, and Denmark. Himmler established more than 20 of these Lebensborn institutions in total. Number 8. The Kidnappings. The Lebensborn program was also responsible for the kidnapping of thousands of European children, and many of these children were from Poland and Slovenia. Any children who looked Aryan enough were abducted, and those who had virtually no Jewish traits were then Germanized. On July 25, 1942, Himmler instructed the SS to send children from Slovenia to Germany. 600 children between the ages of 6 and 12 were given to Lebensborn officials. In his book, Give a Child to the Führer, the Lebensborn organization, German historian Volker Koop says that he found a list of these Slovenian children in a federal archive, along with notes from SS Captain George Rodel, who marked next to each child's name, "Parents shot." These Germanized children were told that their parents were dead or had abandoned them, and they were given new identities, including new names, birth certificates, and even fake lineage, and were then sent to Germany to live in institutions or with German families. Children 2 to 6 years old were sent to Lebensborn homes. The children who could not be Germanized, well, they were sent to concentration camps. Number 7. The fathers. SS officers needed state consent to marry, and this consent depended on the officer's prospective wife meeting the strict Lebensborn standards. In 1936, an ordinance was issued advising every SS member that he should father at least 4 children. Many of these fathers were members of the SS who already had their own families. They were instructed to spread their Aryan seed even out of wedlock. Due to the secrecy of the program, the identities of the father were not recorded on birth certificates. Number 6. The mothers. If a woman wanted to participate in the Lebensborn program, she had to have blonde hair and blue eyes. She also had to have no trace of any genetic disorders, and she had to demonstrate her Aryan ancestry as far back as her grandparents. She also had to prove the identity of the father, who also had to have the proper racial characteristics. Only 40% of the women who applied to join the program actually passed the racial purity test. Further, more than 60% of Lebensborn mothers were unmarried. The Lebensborn program, it had its own registry office system to keep the mothers' and fathers' identities a secret, and most of these documents were burned at the end of the Second World War. The Nazis, they believed that women from Norway were perfect for their program, as were most fair-haired people with blue eyes. It is estimated that about 50,000 Norwegian women had affairs with German soldiers. They were thought of as German whores by other Norwegians and were disciplined with treatments like publicly having their heads shaved once the war ended. Their children, though, they were taken away from them, and most never saw them again. Number 5. The Doctors. Doctors were a vital part of the Lebensborn program. It is believed that medical director Gregor Ebner went to school and was a close friend of Himmler's. At the Steinhering home, he not only supervised the births of 3,000 Lebensborn babies, but also carried out reproduction experiments on many women. Ebner was captured near the end of the Second World War and was tried for crimes against humanity, as well as war crimes and many other crimes. When he died in 1974, he was still holding firm to his Nazi beliefs. Hundreds of doctors and nurses at Lebensborn homes were not only there to care for the children, but also to indoctrinate them as Nazis. They also helped determine whether a child was German enough to be adopted or simply sent to their death in a concentration camp. Number 4. The children. About 8,000 Lebensborn children were born in Germany. They were baptized in ritualistic ceremonies involving an SS dagger, and their parents, adoptive or otherwise, promised the child's loyalty to the Nazi cause. Those children who were left by their single mothers in Lebensborn homes were taken care of by doctors and nurses who were employed by the SS. Many were eventually given to rich Nazi families to rear as their own. In Norway, between 1940 and 1945, approximately 8,000 to 10,000 Lebensborn babies were born, and about half of those were born in Lebensborn institutions. The Nazi Party automatically considered these children German. Number 3. The lawsuits. When the Second World War ended and Germany pulled out of Norway, there were thousands of Lebensborn babies who, through no fault of their own, were either unwanted or had been taken away from their mothers, many of whom had been arrested because they'd had children with German soldiers. Some of these unwanted Lebensborn children from Norway say that they were locked up in state-sanctioned institutions, subjected to medical experimentation, sexually abused, and made to feel shame because of who they were. A group of Lebensborn children sued the Norwegian government, and some settlements have been made. Norway's Prime Minister even made a public apology for the state's mistreatment of Lebensborn children on December 31st, 1999. Number 2. Famous Lebensborn babies. Volker Heinecke, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy, was kidnapped from Crimea in 1942. Himmler was apparently fascinated by him, as was common among kidnapped Lebensborn babies, and he had him examined by German doctors to make sure he didn't show any traces of Judaism. Adalbert Heinecke, a wealthy and honorary SS member, adopted Volker. During the past 60 years, Volker has searched for his birth parents and was one of the Lebensborn children featured in a 2009 BBC film called Children of the Master Race. American actress Marta Kristen was born Bridget Anna-Lisa Rusanen in February of 1945. Her mother was from Finland and her father was a German soldier. Bridget was only 2 months old when her mother left her in an orphanage in Oslo, Norway. In 1949, an American couple adopted her and her name was changed to Marta. In 1969, Marta found her birth mother, Helmi Rusanen, who was living in Finland. Marta appeared in many television shows like Dr. Kildare, My Three Sons, and Wagon Train in the 1960s, and is probably most famous for her starring role as Judy Robinson in Lost in Space. Number 1. The most famous Lebensborn baby. The most famous Lebensborn child is Annie Frid Lyngstad, a founding member of the Swedish pop group ABBA. Born on November 15, 1945, her father was a German sergeant named Alfred Haas. After the Second World War ended, and afraid of retaliations against those who had any dealings with the Germans during the occupation of Norway, Anna Frid's Norwegian mother, Sinni Lyngstad, and her maternal grandmother, Arntine Lyngstad, took her and moved her to Sweden. Soon after moving to Sweden, Sinni died from kidney failure. Her grandmother ended up raising her. Annie Frid had been told that her father had died during the war, but he had actually survived and was a pastry chef living in Germany. She met Haas for the first time in September of 1977. Haas died in 2009. So I really hope you enjoyed that video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for brand new videos every single day. Also, I've got a podcast. It's called BrainFood, and it's educational, entertaining content just like this. It's a bit longer form and it goes into a lot more depth on a specific subject, really getting into all of those fascinating little details. You can check it out through the link in the description below, or just by searching your favorite podcast app for BrainFood. And if you like this YouTube channel, you are sure to love that podcast. But if you want to watch something else right now, why not check out a related video from the TopTenz archives over there on the right? And as always, thank you for watching.